Console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Welcome, folks, to On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about the Falcon. I will be your host, Joshua, callsign Enigma. With me is...
I'm Chandler.
And returning for another episode is the one and only...
This is Gideon.
So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Falcon, a 30-ton light mech developed after the Cameron War of Aggression, also known as the Reunification War by Star League apologists. The Falcon was produced during the beginning of the Reunification Wars we mentioned, along with a slew of other designs aimed to cover deficiencies in the SLDF's doctrine. In large part, these issues came from the fact that the wars the houses of the Inner Sphere had been fighting during the Age of War had been against a very different kind of enemy and in a very different kind of set-piece engagement. The War of Cameron Aggression introduced them to the difficulties of fighting not just a standing military, but an entire population that opposed them. And not just an entire population, but an entire population in a battlefield that was at the very end of the Star League's supply lines. Due to this, the logistics of the SLDF were drastically compromised during the Reunification War, and supply and ease of maintenance was the primary concern for SLDF procurement officers. Hesperus II began producing the Falcon, and it was aimed at covering these deficiencies. Once the Succession War started, the factory on Hesperus II that was producing the Falcon was destroyed, and all the remaining units had either left with the SLDF or had been secured and stored by Comstar. This meant that the few surviving units outside of the SLDF and Comstar were ground down and disappeared during the Succession Wars until the Wolf's Dragoons arrived back in the Inner Sphere. This was one of the mechs in the Wolf's Dragoons TO&E that added to their air of mystery and speculation about their origins. By the time the mystery of the Dragoons had been solved, they had drained their supply caches of Falcons and had entered into a contract with Blackwell Industries to produce replacement Falcons. And eventually they allowed Blackwell to produce the Falcon for use by other buyers. The design quirks for the Falcon is narrow / low profile. So yeah, we're getting a Dragoons-centric mech. I wasn't around when the Dragoons came in, so this doesn't have quite that connotation for me, but do you guys remember when you first heard about the Falcon?
No, not really.
I'm sure Gideon has a better
No,
story for this.
Go ahead, Chandler.
As someone who came in very recently to like serious BattleTech, I found it and I was like, oh, cool, it's a mecha associated with the Dragoons, and then just went right on by it because it didn't have an AC.
It wasn't a Blitzkrieg.
At 30 tons. Why doesn't it have an AC-20?
That's only half its
It
weight.
can be done. I've done it.
Yeah, Urban Mech exists. That's a thing. No, I remember the cardboard punch-out of the Falcon, but then I also remember, just when I was starting off, it was very much if it's not at least 60 tons, it's not worth taking, because you take a serious hit to a light mech, especially in the introductory box, and they were very frustrating. Didn't quite grasp the idea of using terrain and TMM to keep your light mechs alive, so it was used it once, it went back in the box, and that was it.
Yeah, I remember looking at light mechs and then looking at hover tanks and going, but why light mechs? And to some extent, I still feel that way about light mechs compared to heavy hover tanks. So the original model of the Falcon was the FLC-4N. It was introduced in 2582, so close to the end of the War of Cameron Aggression. It, as mentioned before, it weighs 30 tons. It has a GM 180 rated fusion plant, pushing it along at a rate of 696. So it can jump 6 hexes or 180 meters. It has a medium laser in the right arm, a small laser in the right arm, a small laser in the left arm, 2 rear-mounted machine guns, one in each of the side torsos, and that's that's it for its firepower. 6 tons of armor, 12 heat sinks. It's a multi-purpose light mech.
Yeah, it's a light mech. It does things. It goes vroom. It goes whoosh, but in jumping, not in missile. And it also has machine guns, but they're not facing forwards. They're facing backwards because infantry must die in every direction.
Yeah, I think that's what bothers me most. This guy's nice and mobile. He's light enough, presumably cheap enough. You can give him to most units, but his machine guns are rear mounted, so it's not like he can actually hunt down infantry. I guess this is more of a reaction to being ambushed by Taurian partisans.
Yeah, the
Perhaps?
fluff reason, or the lore fluff in universe
Yeah!
reason
Get him.
for the reverse machine guns was just the sheer amount of infantry that was in the reunification war. They put those on the back to make sure it wouldn't get attacked and like kneecapped by infantry from behind.
That just still feels weird, though. You know, like in order to fully use your firepower, you have to wade into the middle of the infantry. Like you can't keep range. You can't use your mobility to stay one step ahead of the infantry. You literally just have to walk into the middle of them and spin in circles, firing everything everywhere. I don't get it, but I appreciate the idea of it. Of we've been shot in the back enough times that we're going to put some machine guns back there.
I think if Classic had a better way to handle hidden units to where you could have infantry popping out behind your units randomly, this might make more sense.
Yeah, because that's exactly what they're for, is like, I ran past some trees and all of a sudden there's SRM infantry popping out.
I mean, it looks cool. There's some great art for it, but this original Falcon 4N is kind of lackluster.
I like its ears.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. How did this thing get named Falcon and not Mouse?
Right, this is the Mickey Mouse of Battlemechs.
Yeah, or Beagle?
It reminds me of, what are those cars? They're little tiny things, dirt tracks. They have the big fin on top.
Dune buggies?
No,
sprint
not
cars?
quite. About the same size. No, dirt, or maybe it is sprint cars. Someone is probably screaming at their phone right now saying, that is what they are, Chandler. But I don't remember their name. I just remember seeing them as a kid. The head reminds me of those. Like, just take it off the mech, give it some wheels. It's all of a sudden going to be zipping around some dirt tracks somewhere in the periphery.
Nice.
It's kind of interesting. The original art does that assassin thing where it looks like it's got 2 cockpits.
Mm-hmm.
One where the eyes are and one where the mouth should be, which I like the way Mechwarrior Online treats the assassin, and I could see it working here, where the upper cockpit is what you're using for most of your combat, and then the lower glass is actually the part of the same cockpit. It's just down at your feet, so when you're maneuvering into your mech bay or out of your dropship, you can see where your feet are and what you're doing down there.
Because stepping on text is not funny.
No.
Not corporate approved.
The original art also has some giant flipper feet. Like this guy should be a 7-Eleven in water with feet like that.
Yeah, the Operation Klondike artwork's very good, and also highlights the fact that the cockpit is the upper part.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that one next. But first up, the battle value for the Falcon 4N is 610, and the point value is 19. Then in 2776, so almost 200 years later, we get the Falcon 4NB. B, of course, being for Royal, or as Chandler says, better. This guy has the same engine, same movement profile, upgrades the chassis to Endosteel, has a snub-nose PPC, and 2 medium lasers. So already I like it.
Yeah, you do lose a little armor, just a touch, like a half ton.
Yep.
Yeah, but you gain double heat sinks.
Yeah, so it's worth it, I think. There is a very interesting note about this one, is that it was not built within hegemony space. It was actually built in captured Rim Worlds Republic space, on Apollo to be exact.
Well, that's going to come back to bite somebody. I have a feeling.
Perhaps.
Maybe those Clan Wolverine guys who were salvaging stuff out of the old Rimworld's Republic will show up with one.
Yeah. I mean, Amaris never got his mitts on this because this was made after Kerensky walked over to, Amaris's home and said, this is mine now.
Oh.
So, at the very least, we didn't have to worry about Amaris with this.
Man, I need to double check my dates. I just keep running with what I think in my head. Headcanon is dangerous.
Headcanon is not real canon.
The loadout on this one I do really like. Not so much for where the 4N is definitely a guerrilla fighter or counter guerrilla fighter.
counterinsurgency, a coin mech.
Yeah, this one is definitely we are focusing on, we're going to be doing battle with other mechs and vehicles and armored, defended positions. So we're going to give it a really big boomstick, and it can use its mobility. It can fire off everything, only be a couple heat over, and then jump, full 6 hexes again next turn, and then just hold back on a medium. And you can really play around with the heat there.
Yeah, and it's got a snub nose. I like it. Unfortunately, it is extinct after the SLDF leaves, which is a real bummer.
The touch on Gideon's thought there. I think this is definitely a very interesting aspect of the Amar Civil War, where you see this mech that we know for a fact debuted during it, smack dab right in the middle, designed and built. And you see the shift from its original purpose with the 4N to this, where it's going from, I'm going to go scout, to I'm going to scout you a grave. And you're shifting your mech's entire focus because that's what you need at the time. And they did a dang good job. SLDF.
Yeah, well, but it had to go extinct because they had to explain away that snub-nosed PPCs existed. So,
yep, because snub-nosed PPCs become clan ERPPCs.
Yes.
So the Falcon 4NB Royal Falcon has a BV of 947 and a point value of 22. Next up, we have the 4NB Papa Papa in 2792. This is most likely a field refit, standard field refit for the 4NB after the SLDF left the inner sphere. They did not have reliable access to snub-nosed PPCs, so this guy takes out a medium laser to change the snub-nosed PPC to a standard PPC. And that's the only difference.
So you're very close. So the PP and PP2, which is the next one we'll be talking about, are from the Pentagon Wars over in Kerensky space, also known as Clan space, also known as Those People Are Weird space.
Technically that's after the SLDF left the inner sphere, which is what I said.
Yes. No, yeah. No, you're right. Essentially everything you just said, but transplant it to Clan space and make it a second Exodus.
And most of the Royal Falcons were placed into a Brian Cache on Stranomecti, and the Clan Goliath Scorpion would pull a bunch of them out to fight in those Pentagon Civil War.
Yep.
So, so the 4PP, it's essentially a Royal, except it pulls out a medium laser and the snub nose to put in a standard PPC because they didn't have reliable access to snub nose PPCs.
It's kind of like a Panther, only better in my mind. It's lighter armored, but I like it.
Yeah.
No SRM, but you still have a medium laser,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it very straightforward, and I like the very direct, where it's, because sometimes they say this is a field refit, and you're like, how did they manage that? But disconnecting the snub nose, hooking up a PPC, dropping a medium laser, little Bondo, call it a day.
Yeah, it's a sensible upgrade. I think the next one, the PP2, is a little bit better. But before we get there, the 4NB-Papa Papa is a battle value of 881 and a point value of 23. The 4NB Papa Papa 2 was developed in 2795. So we were talking about Pentagon Civil War, not enough snub-nosed PPCs to replace damage. So this guy pulls out the snub-nosed PPC to replace it with an ER large laser and upgrade one of the medium lasers to a medium pulse laser. The medium pulse laser is in the left arm, standard medium laser in the right arm, along with the ER large laser in the right arm. Not gonna lie, I like this one better than the standard Papa Papa, but not quite as much as the original Royal Falcon.
No, I completely agree.
The only issue with this one is it's a little toasty.
It's not bad though. You're talking 19 weapon heat, so you're only really getting hot if you're jumping a lot. That's why I like it a little bit better, is it keeps all 3 weapon systems instead of losing one of the medium lasers to make room for that PPC. So the Falcon NB Papa Papa 2 has a battle value of 947 and a point value of 23. Then we get to the unique Falcon variant we have, the 4NB Saho. This was a Goliath Scorpion Mechwarrior who replaced his damaged snub-nosed PPC and 1 medium laser with a large pulse laser salvaged from a Royal model Wyvern. No other Falcons were apparently modified to this standard though, so it's a one-off. Yeah, I'm not sure why he had to pull out his large pulse laser. Or is this a prototype large pulse laser?
No, it's an IS large though, so it's 7 tons.
Gotcha. For some reason, I thought they were the same weight as snub-nose PPCs. Yeah, so medium laser in the left arm, large pulse laser, inner sphere in the right arm. Everything else is the same as the previous 4NB.
Yeah, I dig it. It's kind of everything you get with the standard 4NB. The large pulse is a good replacement for the snub nose because the snub nose has that great short range bracket. But the large pulse, you get the -2, so it's kind of a 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
With a large pulse, your medium range is basically short range for any other
Definitely
weapon.
don't want to run into this if you're piloting a Locust.
It has the same 5.5 tons as all the other Royal variants, and its battle value is 774, point value of 22. Then we move back to the inner sphere. In 3050, we get the Falcon 4P. So this guy's right before the clan invasion. Wolf's Dragoons, Blackwell Industries variant, I believe. It's got a similar movement profile to the original, 695. It's got an AMS in the left torso. It's got a small laser in each arm and a medium pulse laser in the right arm. It has 6 tons of armor, 12 single heat sinks, standard cockpit. I mean, the AMS is interesting. Definitely feels like a downgrade for firepower after looking at the Royal, though.
Yeah, it doesn't have a big stick.
I mean, compared to the original 4N, vast improvement, just because instead of having some random machine guns, which were very useful when it was introduced, but not useful during the era it is in now, having the medium pulse laser and the AMS system just increases both your firepower, but then also your survivability, especially against, random LRM barrages that, someone's just throwing at you to try to knock you over.
I was trying to find something good about it, because this guy makes me sad. That medium pulse laser, yes, you get the -2, but you have a 6 hex long range, and it's your long range weapon.
Scouts.
I don't know what this guy
Scout.
does. I really don't.
Little do we know those ears are actually highly sensitive radar dishes.
Yeah.
I guess they're the integrated Beagle active probe, because they look like beagle ears.
I mean, it kind of fits into the intro tech level of classic scouts, your stingers and your wasps, and that by movement. So it's a little more, it's a little more squishy because it's got a little more weight to it. But yeah, I mean, not a lot going on. I mean, when it comes to inner sphere medium pulse, I would almost rather have 2 medium lasers any day.
So the problem is with the inner sphere medium pulse, your long range is 6 hexes, but you get a -2, so that's really a +2 modifier at 6 hexes. Your standard inner sphere medium laser weighs half as much, so you can take 2 of them, and generates just over half as much heat. So you can almost fire them the same amount of times, and they have a medium range of 6 hexes, which is a +2 modifier. So a medium pulse laser is almost always a downgrade from having 2 standard medium lasers. It's just frustrating.
Well, and I guess too, I get why people like heat neutral mechs, but having those 2 extra heat sinks when all they do is cover you if you jump your full distance and fire everything, including your AMS. I feel like you could definitely at least drop one of them and then get your jump jets to max. I don't know. Just seems kind of odd.
It's at least a jump of 5, which means it hits that magical +2 TMM for distance, and then another +1 for jumping. So it's a +3 modifier. So it doesn't bother me. Like if it was 4 jump jets, I would be really upset. But even though it's a 695 instead of a 696, I am not bothered at all by that.
Yeah.
I would drop a heat sink.
Well, if you drop a heat sink and both the small lasers, you can add 2 medium lasers.
Medium lasers are the ultimate weapon, though. So, of course, we want more medium lasers.
Or at least drop 2 heat sinks to upgrade the small lasers to small pulses, so you have some anti-infantry capability.
That makes sense.
But that is the 4P. P is for pathetic.
The poor child.
It has a battle value of 649 and a point value of 20. 15 years later, we get the Falcon 5P in 3065. This guy is quite a different beast. It has a movement profile of 6'9", jump of 5. So 695 mask gets it up to 12 hexes. It has a medium pulse laser in the right arm, an ER medium laser in the right arm, an ER medium laser in the left arm, and a targeting computer in the left torso. It has a light fusion engine, so not a full XL. This light fusion engine has 2 crits in each side torso instead of 3, like a standard Inner Sphere XL. Still has 12 single heat sinks. And this guy starts to feel a lot more like that Royal variant that disappeared, having the medium laser in each arm and then a slightly heavier weapon in the right arm.
I miss the armor, though. I feel like this is hiding behind tissue paper in a gunfight.
5 armor, yeah.
I kind of wish the 2 ER mediums were in the same arm, just for symmetry.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be symmetrical to the Royal, though.
Yeah.
Because the Royal had a medium in each arm and then the snub.
The 4N had medium laser and small laser in the right arm and a small laser in the left arm. So I think they're just trying to keep that balance so you could use it as the same mini. No, I'm just kidding. But
I mean, I would not put it past them as that's why. I think this guy really needs Pharaoh and Endo.
Yeah.
Mostly so that you can bump the armor up a little bit more.
Yeah, it just needs something. It's like right there.
Yeah, it's right there. I like the 5 jump and the targeting computer. That's my WNRP ride. The Thunderbolt 11 SE has a jump of 5 and a targeting computer, which basically means I can jump, take a penalty of 3 to my shooting, and then reduce it to 2 with the targeting computer, but hand out a penalty to my opponent's targeting of 3, leaving me 1 up on the exchange. And this guy can do the exact same thing. Or he can kick in his mask and go 12 hexes, and if he can get those 12 hexes in a straight line, he can get a +4.
yeah.
Yeah, +4 modifier.
Yeah, and that with how little armor it has, that's what I would be tempted to do, is wait for the opponent to have a unit that I can get a good flank shot on, engage the mask, hightail it over there, and then jump away, and get to some cover, something on the next turn. Because, you take a large laser and you are now without armor. It's scary.
Yeah. Honestly, I would trade out that medium pulse for another ER medium and put the extra tonnage into another ton of armor. Because then you'd have all 3 being able to shoot at the same range.
Heaven forbid someone hits you with an AC-20. Ugh.
Yeah, you can't take one anywhere. You're done.
You're a light mech. How many light mechs can take an AC-20?
Irby hand out AC-20. I think there's 35 tonners that can, but yeah, at 30 tons, that's asking a lot.
Yeah, Endo Steel and Pharaoh, maybe swap that medium pulse laser for something else. But so yeah, I like the 5P more than anything except the 4NB with a snub.
And you have expensive taste, sir, because the 4NB, well, the 4NB is pretty affordable at 2.7 million.
This guy's only $1 million more.
Only 33% more. You have to look at it like an accountant. It's 33% more, but that's what you get when you go light fusion and mask. That's expensive stuff.
But, when you're getting into the 3060s and beyond and you're dealing with clan tech on a regular basis, clan tech, a lot of it uses XL engines, and that's on top of all the weight reductions they get for their weapons. So if you're Inner Sphere, you have to have a light or an XL to really be able to compete head-to-head with that clan tech you're going to run into.
That's fair.
So the Falcon 5P has a battle value of 945 and a point value of 27. Then we get the Falcon 6C in 3065. This guy has a movement profile of 695, so he's keeping that standard profile we've gotten used to. He's got a standard fusion engine, 10 double heat sinks, 5 tons of armor, but it's ferrophobos armor now, so it's more protection than the last model. Keeps the anti-missile system of the 4P, has an ER small in both the right and left arms, has a ER large laser in the right arm, and a targeting computer in the right torso. Best Falcon yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, Wolf's Dragoons.
This guy, he can now snipe, and his ER large has a targeting computer, so you can snipe better. 10 double heat sinks, so you can actually be heat neutral and alpha strike, and not quite jump, but pretty close. You're only generating 2 heat when you jump.
Oh, I just realized why this one is so much better than all the other ones. Because it's clan tech.
Yep. Pure clan tech.
Those sneaky clanners.
It's the Dragoons this time. Those sneaky wolf dragoons.
They're the original sneaky clanners.
Everyone else learned it from them.
That would explain it. That would be why it's the 4 or the 6C instead of the 6P. It's got clan tech. Yeah. So yeah, this is what the royal version should have looked like after the clans got to clan space. Solid, really good.
Yeah, even going with my economics argument, this is one of the more affordable ones, which, when you use standard internal structure and a standard engine, you can make things happen, especially when you have, apparently, unlimited clan lasers, because that's good stuff.
Sadly, this goes extinct after the jihad.
You finally got there, Falcon. And word of Blake clipped your wings.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Also, you in the Dark Ages and now the Ill Clan era, do you think there's room for light mechs like this anymore? It's got no electronics. It's got AMS, but that's its only special thing. Just not sure how useful it is with even, Clan Pharaoh protecting it.
Yeah, maybe if some Capellans found it and took off the AMS and swapped it with an ECM and stealth armor. I don't know. That's the only way I'd really see it fitting on any battlefield currently. I mean, it's a nice skirmisher, harasser, but yeah, compared to when you got stuff running around with XL plus mask plus supercharger, 695 just doesn't cut it for a 30-tonner anymore.
Well, and to add insult to injury, only a handful of 6Cs survived the Battle of Outreach, and most of those were captured by the Word of Blake.
Even better.
So the 6C is going to see more use in the hands of Blakeist forces than the Dragoons forces, unfortunately.
Rip in peace.
So the Falcon 6C has a battle value of 1,290 and a point value of 29. And that brings us to the end of the Falcon, but not the end of this segment, because we have an honorable mention, the Drift Shag. The Drift Shag was the first Ice Hellion battlemech built entirely with clan technology. It's named for the Drift Shag on the planet Hector, a carnivorous seabird that lives in large family groups. The entire family group will swarm an attacker until it's driven off or the entire family is destroyed. The Ice Hellions felt that was a perfect example for the way they fought. The Drift Shag is an honorable mention because it is a clan conversion of the Falcon. The Drift Shag was introduced by the Ice Hellions in 2827, has a movement profile of 711.6, has 11 double heat sinks, an XL engine, an ER large laser in the right arm, a medium pulse laser in the right torso, and 4 ER small lasers in the left arm. Design quirk for having a bad reputation, in addition to the standard Falcon narrow profile. It runs hot, but I don't think it's that bad.
No, I mean, and it bumps the movement up to kind of where you'd more expect 30-tonner to be. Yeah, I mean, kind of just the 6C on steroids, I guess.
Yeah, we finally got that endo steel.
This is a mean mech for a 30-tonner in Alpha Strike. It's got a short and medium range damage of 4, which is normally what you would see, an inner sphere heavy, and not a crappy heavy, an average inner sphere heavy. So mean boy, only available to the Ice Hellions, Scorpion Imperio, and Scorpion Empire in the Dark Ages.
Yeah, once Ice Hellion collapsed, the Scorpions got their mitts on it because they were at least mildly friendly enough to them to get it.
Yeah,
I guess it was primarily used to hunt down the bandit caste, using its speed and ammo independence.
Yeah, I mean, pretty solid. Solid enough to get me to run a Clan Ice Hellion or Scorpion Empire list. Probably not, but it's pretty nice.
But if you were running one, you would probably think about
Oh, yeah, for sure. That 3 TMM and then, smacking hard. That's good.
Good job, Scorpions. Way to get your mitts on it.
The Scorpions did something.
Yeah, I think they're an underappreciated faction.
It's true.
All right. So that's going to bring us to the pilot profiles. Our first pilot profile is...
First pilot we have today is Saho Ye, which was our unique mech for this episode. Saho was a member of the Exodus fleet, and he grew up idolizing Alexander Kerensky after death of his father, who was the commander of the 29th Royal Dragoons. Once the Pentagon worlds devolved into the Pentagon Civil War and the Second Exodus occurred, he happily joined Nicholas as part of his merry band of men, which totally will not turn into murderers.
Murder hobos?
Murder hobos, merry band of pillagers, potato. Wonder how much of that happily joined is because of his idolizing of Alexander Kerensky and how much of that is actually agreeing with Nicholas. He would eventually return to the Pentagon worlds as part of Clan Goliath Scorpion and would be the only mech survivor of the assault on Firebase Delta on Dagd. And for the remainder of his life, he harbored a hatred of the clans Widowmaker, Burrock, and Fire Mandrels, who he blamed for the losses of Clan Goliath Scorpion and the death of his comrades. And then, of course, after Operation Klondike, he would be known for initiating trials against these clans until he died during a battle with Clan Burrock in 2828.
Next up, we've got Mechwarrior Maurice Fren. He was a Wolf's Dragoon Mechwarrior, formerly part of Gamma Regiment. He was wounded twice in the brutal fighting that almost destroyed the Dragoons during the Fourth Succession War. He was one of the only mech warriors from Wisey's company to survive the bloodbath at Fort Belvoir on Hiro's son. Natasha Kerensky, the legendary Black Widow, recruited him and some of the other Gamma survivors into the Black Widow Battalion. Fren's specialty is an expert at setting up ambushes, a skill that Natasha Kerensky has utilized on many occasions. Of course, this ability has given Fren a special appreciation on how to read terrain and made him very adept at spotting enemy ambushes.
All right, and then next we have Lieutenant Elton Rice. He's a member of the Waco Rangers during the Battle of Harlech on Outreach. His experience in the Armed Forces of the Federated Commonwealth put him in command of 5 other independent mech warriors. As the battle against the Wolf's Dragoons continued, he eventually had his fill of how the other mercenaries were acting and some of their behavior. So he and the men he was overseeing abandoned their contract and chose to defend an apartment building full of civilians. All the mechs were lost and most of the pilots died. And, I mean, it was Outreach at the kickoff of the jihad. So who really knows if his Alamo stand paid off, but he tried. That's kind of all you can do in a situation like that.
It's kind of hard for the Alamo to survive when the Word of Blake nukes it.
Right. It's like if Mexico had rolled in with, Abrams tanks, and the Alamo's not so much of the Alamo anymore.
Yeah.
What was that? I heard you had a wall. Not anymore. Next up, we have Mechwarrior Micah Lynette. They are a Ice Hellion warrior in the 53rd Strike Irregulars. Micah would end up fighting the Jade Falcons hard on Romulus, but was knocked out during the fight by a Falcon Kit Fox when it destroyed his Drift Shag's gyro. And while the fall from this damage did not kill him, it did knock him unconscious. And when he awoke, he found himself among the few survivors of his cluster and a bondsman of the Jade Falcon. And luckily for him, his first task was very simple, transmitting the message to his former clan, informing them that they had been defeated. Yeah, good job, Jade Falcons, I guess.
Don't know how lucky that is.
Sarcastic kind of luck. I mean, I guess he didn't have to clean the latrines, so,
Our last notable pilot for tonight is Hiro Yoshiki. He's a Draconis Combine mech warrior who was assigned to the Razzlehog Regulars due to being 1/4 Scandinavian. That 1/4 Scandinavian in his blood made a lot of the Draconis Combine warriors in his career prejudiced against him. It is a testament to his skill and loyalty that he was able to secure a transfer to the Recon Lance of the prestigious Genyosha.
Yeah, that's a pretty big step up.
Yeah. Wonder how he made it through the clan invasions, and if he ever wound up in Razzlehog, or if he stayed loyal to the Combine.
The world may never know. Although with all the persecution and abuse, I wouldn't be surprised if he did end up going to the Razzlehogians.
So, given the Wolf's Dragoons-centric nature of the Falcon, our data dive today is going to cover the Wolf's Dragoons. Seems only fitting given how closely associated the Falcon mech is with this storied unit. Wolf's Dragoons entered the mercenary scene in 3005 after giving the Davians on Delos a coronary by showing up with enough combat dropships to carry 5 full regiments of battlemechs. Not common dropships either, but models that hadn't been seen in over 200 years. Adding to their mystery was the fact that all of their mechs, aerospace fighters, and other equipment was brand new. This aura of mystery would be one of the defining characteristics of the Wolf's Dragoons for the next 40 to 50 years. Their first contract was with House Davian, and during the negotiations, they showed an excellent grasp of mercenary contracts and standards despite having no previous record in the business. On top of a reasonable fee, all the Dragoons asked House Davian was for a leasehold, basically their own little micro-country on a Davian planet where they could set up their dependents. The request was granted, and the Dragoons would settle on New Valencia for the duration of their contract with House Davian. The Dragoons' first action would be on Halloran 5. Now, if you've played Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, you probably remember Halloran 5 because that's where a bunch of the kind of training missions or early missions take place. Love that game. The Dragoons went to the Federated Suns with intelligence showing that House Liao was using Halloran 5 as a base to raid the Capellan March. The Capellan March being the province of the Federated Suns that borders the Capellan Confederation. This was the first inkling of the Dragoons' unrivaled military intelligence apparatus, and it was so accurate and well documented it actually made some of the Davian intelligence officers suspicious. Given permission to assault Halloran 5, the Dragoons would overrun the Capellan base in just a single day, catching the defenders off guard and exhausted as they had just returned from a raid. The Capellans would prove stubborn, though, and inflict losses and delays on the Dragoons through clever uses of infantry and urban mechs. After a couple of days of this, the 7th Commandos would infiltrate Capellan lines and fake radio transmissions that caused the Capellans to fall back. And in the ensuing confusion, the Dragoons smashed them. Delta Regiment's tenacity as the Dragoons' anvil and the 7th Commando's bag of dirty tricks won this initial battle for the Dragoons. The Dragoons' second major action would be conducted by Alpha and Epsilon regiments. With units of the 7th Commandos paving the way, the Dragoons hit the planet Stike. Launching insurgency-style raids, the 7th Commando convinced the Capellans on Stike that they were facing rebels. After the Commandos drew out the major Capellan forces on planet, the main Dragoon forces surrounded Hegemony Bay, the planet's primary metropolis. They smashed the single battalion left in the city and then wrecked the industrial center. As the 7th Commando hovercraft fell back and battled Capellan naval forces in Hegemony Bay, the Dragoons withdrew to their dropships after bloodying the Capellan 4th Cavalry. The raid on Stike was a stunning success, setting back mech production on the planet by more than 6 months, making the Capellans look like idiots and successfully extracting the Dragoon forces before they could be pinned down and destroyed. The Capellan Confederation, stung and humiliated by the Dragoons, took their frustrations out on mercenaries in the Confederation, foreshadowing the effect the Dragoons would have after their service with the Draconis Combine. Upset by the Confederation's reaction, McCarran's Armored Cavalry, also known as Big Mac, Arby's is the preferred brand in the Federated Suns. I guess you can guess who's the preferred brand in the Capellan Confederation. I guess it's not actually Arby's, it's Triple F. Anyway, McCarran's Armored Cavalry, Big Mac, got permission from the Chancellor in 3007 to strike back at the Dragoons. McCarran's Armored Cavalry were experts in deep raids and strategic maneuvering, something that they would show off during the Fourth Succession War, much to the frustration of the Federated Suns. Big Mac used those skills in conducting deep raids and strategic maneuvering to penetrate deep into Federated Suns territory to strike at the Dragoons in their leasehold on New Valencia. With Jamie Wolfe off-world with 2 of the Dragoons' regiments, Big Mac dropped on New Valencia with 5 full regiments. The 3 Dragoons regiments on New Valencia used conventional vehicle battalions to defend against the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd McCarran's Armored Cavalry regiments, while the Dragoons evacuated their dependents into Fort Jamie. McCarran's Armored Cavalry threw their remaining 2 regiments into the fight to try and break the Dragoons, and managed to push them into the bunkers of Fort Jamie where they besieged them. While the Dragoons were trapped inside Fort Jamie, McCarran's Armored Cavalry destroyed much of the Federated Suns town outside of the fort, and only withdrew once 3 regiments from the Eridani Light Horse jumped in system to raise the siege. This attack deep inside Federated Suns territory necessitated a response. So Jamie Wolf dispatched the 7th Commando to raid McCarran's armored cavalry bases. The 7th Commando would destroy all of McCarran's supply depots on a single night. And they supposedly left a note on Colonel McCarran's office door that said, "Next time we get rough." This was seen as a relatively restrained response to McCarran's overt and heavy-handed raid against the Dragoon base. And this more proportional response won the approval of Prince Ian Davian and his younger brother Colonel Hans Davian. However, some of the Federated Suns citizens on New Valencia blamed Wolf's Dragoons for the attack on New Valencia because they felt that if the Dragoons hadn't been based there, McCarran's would never have launched a raid that deep into Federated Suns territory. Other citizens of New Valencia, however, were very grateful that Wolf's Dragoons used their battle mechs to help clear out rubble and rebuild buildings and help that community get back on its feet. The Dragoons would spend the rest of 3007 conducting minor operations, including a punitive pirate hunting expedition in the Tortuga Dominions. They repelled an attack on Huicapaug by the St. Ives Armored Cavalry, and they raided Poznan. Early 3008 saw more raids, including some up to regiment size and strength, all of which would lead up to the titanic clash with the Confederation on the former Davian planet of New Aragon. During all of this, the Dragoons were also busy dealing with corruption and prejudice from Michael Hasek Davian, the son and heir of the Duke of the Capellan March. In March of 3008, all 5 regiments, minus 1 support battalion left behind on New Valencia, and 5 Federated Suns regimental combat teams dropped onto New Aragon against 8 regiments from the Capellan Confederation. The Capellans were able to throw back 5 separate Dragoon attacks, including an assault by Zeta Battalion's assault mechs. The only early success in this campaign was Epsilon Regiment's night assault on Hill 714. Assault mechs, supported by infantry and armor, fought their way up the hill by the light of autocannon and plasma fire, as one holo reporter put it. However, the Capellans would continue to repulse Dragoon attack after Dragoon attack. At one point, Colonel Travis King of Delta Regiment was killed while falling back from another failed assault against the 2nd Kearney Highlanders. After a dozen major assaults, it was clear that the battle was stalemated. Jamie Wolf broke this stalemate by deploying the 7th Commandos yet again. Commandos, along with light mech support from Alpha and Gamma regiments, dropped behind Capellan lines and made like they were a big bad Dragoon force. While the Commandos distracted the main Capellan forces, Zeta Battalion, again the assault mech battalion, led the charge through a pass on the flank of the main Capellan positions, known as the El Diablo Pass. Garrisoned in part by Waco's Rangers, this pass was Jamie Wolf's plan to bypass the Capellans and force their flank. During the assault, Zeta Battalion overran Waco's Rangers, and the rest of the Dragoons coming up behind Zeta Battalion pushed all the way through Diablo Pass. During this battle, a Dragoon's stalker stepped on and crushed John Waco, son of the Waco's Rangers commander. The commander of Waco's Rangers would later be told that this was an intentional act and would lead to him swearing undying hatred of the Wolf's Dragoons. Jamie Wolf's flanking attack was successful and turned the Capellan lines, forcing them out of their prepared positions and letting the numerically superior Federated Suns forces drive the Capellans off of New Aragon within months. In 3009, the Dragoons were granted permission to take unit-wide leave for several months to rest and refit. During this time, they disappeared beyond the periphery and returned with all of their equipment replaced with brand new gear, and even some never-before-seen battlemech designs. This, along with their sudden arrival, their incredibly competent intelligence apparatus, and closed community, would begin to lead to speculation about their origins, with some positing that they might actually be from General Alexander Kerensky's SLDF, scouting out the inner sphere to see what had happened after the SLDF left the inner sphere. During the rest of 3009 and 3010, the Dragoons would have a fairly quiet period conducting minor raids and garrison duty for House Davian. In 3010, when their contract with House Davian came up for renewal, Jamie Wolfe would decline to renew and signed a contract with the Capellan Confederation. This contract included a clause that they would not be deployed against the Federated Suns. And that ends our data dive for today. We will pick up with the Dragoons and their service to House Liao on the next Wolf's Dragoons data dive. Our sources for today were Sarna, Battletech Mech Manual, the Master Unit List, Succession War TRO and Record Sheet, Historical Operation Klondike Record Sheets, TRO 3050 Upgrades, Record Sheets 3050 Upgrades Inner Sphere, TRO 3039,
TRO Golden Age.
This podcast is made possible by our supporters on patreon.com/on the Origin of Battlemechs, link in the description. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a community Discord, the Armory of Ouroboros, link in the description. You can email us at ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your platform of consumption, tell your friends about us, and share on your community platform of choice. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro.
Peace out, Mechwarriors.
Stay safe out there.
Until next time.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?
What do you mean I can't say? Guys?